to Otaku no Video. As always, thank you very, very much for joining me for my review of the first 3 volumes of Fushigi Yuugi, the magical play, the manga that was drawn by Yuu Watase back in the early to mid-90s. Now, before I begin, I must warn you, this was, from what I understand, one of the first big reverse harem stories, meaning it's about a girl surrounded by lots of cute guys. But don't worry if you're not into that. This is a toned-down version of that kind of a story. There's really only one guy for the girl, although there are other complications going on. But it's not like they're all vying for her affections all the time, thank goodness. Now, who is this her I'm talking about? Miyaka is a normal Japanese schoolgirl. She and her best friend are transported to this magical fantasy world. And Miyaka is the key, who is foretold to blah, 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 blah. And the friend, actually, that's a spoiler. And that's one of the interesting things, is that the story starts out, as you can probably tell, pretty straightforward and pretty cliched. And then it starts adding complexity and adding plot twists and other things to that, which are delivered at a pace that is quite easy to parse. I never felt like I was overwhelmed by how things were changing. But by the end of Volume 3, quite a lot had happened, and things had gotten pretty darn complicated. But I felt I could put the book down and pick it back up and understand, and not have forgotten, all the important stuff. So, excellent job, Watase, on that. The characters themselves are quite different from each other, and frankly, the ones in the fantasy world are odd. And they frankly feel kind of alien. They'll react sometimes with very strong emotions and sometimes with very minimal emotions to some things. And that actually I appreciated a lot because this is an alternate world. If you have a world that really did have a culture that evolved, as long as ours did, it would be completely different and people would act differently. So it's nice seeing that in this story and to be wondering, well, what is going on? Why are our characters behaving that way? It's nice. And the artwork does a good job of differentiating between them. And the dialogue actually gets across this alien element in the sense that the characters in this alternate universe speak with this formal way of speaking, almost like elves in Lord of the Rings, kind of a high speech that feels just odd. And again, it's a different world. The artwork is a little busy and detail-oriented, but it never gets in the way of the story. I was able to parse at all times without any problem. And it was actually kind of a relief to me. Sometimes characters in shoujo stories feel like they're kind of floating in this white void. And in Fushigi Yuugi, that doesn't happen. They feel very grounded in this world, which is kind of like a Chinese fantasy world. If you've seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, for example, it's very much like that world, although without the wire work martial artists. There are martial artists, but not wire work ones. And so it feels grounded, and the world feels real. It doesn't feel like she came up with some neat characters and dropped them in this, plain vanilla fantasy setting. Everything is integrated very well. Now, a bit of backstory from me on this as to my personal reactions. Unfortunately, I came into this with sort of a spoiled attitude. Many, many years ago, I came across a VHS bargain bin of anime. This is back when anime was very hard to get and very expensive. And so the prospect of getting anime for $4 or $5 a tape was amazing. And so among the tapes I picked up was, I think, Volume 8 of the Fushigi Yuugi anime. And so I brought it home and watched an episode or two, and I was completely lost. The characters were not interesting. There was all these pieces of dialogue referring to things, and I didn't like it at all. Unfortunately, Fushigi Yuugi is not the kind of story that you want to come in part way on. There's just too much that's been set up, and there's been too much going on between the characters. So when I came to the manga, I had some trepidation. Fortunately, I loved it. I was sucked completely into the manga pretty much from the get-go. Once I got past the kind of cliched setup. And Watase just completely sucked me in. And I finished the 3rd volume, and I very much want to know what's going to happen next in the story. So I'm thoroughly impressed, especially for a shoujo story, to pull me in that much, make me really interested when it's really a very relational story about these characters and what they feel about each other and what that means, and a lot of romance, but then a lot of other drama and complications and so forth. That's something that happens very rarely for me, so good on Watase. The entire manga is available in English, although it was released a while back, so it'll be hard to find some volumes. I found it in my local library, actually, a good chunk of it. There were several anime adaptations, of which I believe all of them have been released in English, so you can track those down if you want to. They're of varying quality, as with most of these things, including some adaptations of some light novel spin-offs of the story. So those are my thoughts on Fushigi Yuugi. If you want to watch the anime of Fushigi Yuugi, stop by streamsuki.com, where perhaps by this point somebody has posted a legitimate online anime stream. That's what StreamSuki is all about, is legal anime streams. So maybe one is out there by now. And if you want to talk about Fushigi Yuugi or any other interesting anime or manga, please stop by otakunovideo.net, where we have a forum and lots of other cool ways to talk about interesting anime and manga. So that's it from me, and thanks for watching.